All right, everyone, welcome to the latest Albert's List webinar. We're here today talking with Stella Yuen. The webinar today is Finding the Career That Sticks. And so we are talking to Stella about her new book. So she just released a book called Find Your Peanut Butter, The Transferrable Skills of Dating and Job Hunting. And so, we're here, we're here in early March, excuse me, and we're about 2 months into the year so far. And we are really looking at the beginning of the year. Jobs are starting to the job market is starting to pick up as new budgets come through. And, even with that, a lot of people still have trouble finding jobs. And for those of you who've been in this group for quite a while, I'm actually wondering if this is broadcasting anywhere. Hold on, let me end this real quick.
I don't know how this works, though. Looks like no one's
Oh yeah, it is
on.
going live. Never mind. Okay, so hold on. I'm gonna I'm gonna not do this end broadcast. All right, cool. We have 3 people watching, so I didn't notice this because Facebook didn't tell me. Anyways, we're back. So yes. If for those of you who are watching this webinar for the very first time,
Sorry.
Stella is a longtime member of this group, a good friend of mine that I met at a meetup here in Orange County several years ago, and she is a campus recruiter at a regionally or nationally recognized accounting firm, whichever way you want to put it. And she's also the author of a book called Find Your Peanut Butter, The Transferrable Skills of Dating and Job Hunting. Relative title. She can tell you more. And we're going to dive into this book today and talk about really what your job search looks like as you gear into the second half of 2017 and really go through the entire job process from beginning to end. Stella, as you also know from her LinkedIn, also has a master's in education with a specific concentration in career counseling from the University of Southern California. Welcome back to the show, Stella. How are you doing?
Thanks. Pretty good. Sorry I had to delay it so much. I've been sick for a while.
It's okay. We have technology constraints. I've got my own, you've got yours, but we're here and we're talking. And so, tell us, give us a brief primer on this book. I want to jump into the details and the meat and the nitty gritty about it with regards to the whole entire job search process. And first, I want to just, learn more about you and hopefully give a better summary of what I used versus of yourself versus what I used.
Sure. So, where do we start?
Anywhere you'd like.
Okay. So, my name's Stella. I am currently a campus recruiter at a public accounting firm. I'm not going to name it, but we are the largest California-based firm. So it's really exciting because there's a lot of growth and opportunity, which is why I still have my job.
Mm-hmm.
Previous to that, I graduated from San Diego State with my degree in business management. Worked a couple of jobs. I was actually at the YMCA as a membership coordinator. That was kind of interim before I went to USC for grad school. Did it in education counseling. Like Albert mentioned, a lot of my concentration is in career counseling. So I worked at quite a few career services. I built several from the ground up. So not only did I build the program, but I also did a lot of career counseling and a lot of recruiting at the same time. At the YMCA, I actually built their first internship program, which is really exciting. So I did a lot of that. So I've been with my current firm for about a year now, but on the side, I do a lot of career coaching, a lot of mock interviews, and also run a blog called Find Your Peanut Butter. So it's www.findyourpeanutbutter.com. So there is really where I first started with the idea of comparing the similarities between dating and job searching. So
And this is, I think, the most compelling and interesting thing that I really want to talk about today, because I've known you for really the past 2 years when you were starting on this endeavor called Find Your Peanut Butter. And I know that it's really interesting to people that even for people who may not date as well like me, that, your job search and your dating life are very, very similar to each other. And this is what you've been writing about the last couple of years, right?
Yep. definitely. So
Hmm.
I'll start from the beginning. For those who
Sure.
don't know, the idea came about when I was dating, actually, and
Hmm.
I was like, okay, this is like dating was still relatively new. Now I'm like dating myself, but this one like online dating was relatively new, and my friends were talking about it. I'm like, okay, like that's cool, but part of it, it's not really a find your soulmate, which, I hope. And I'm thinking like, okay, in college, like all my friends were going on my friends and girlfriends and stuff. And I'm just like, okay, what's up with my life? For me, career counseling and like finding a job, I've had like numerous internships um, throughout my life, created my own internships actually. And I'm like, man, finding a job is so much easier. But I realized like a lot of it is really the same process from like, going to the beginning, doing like meeting up, interviewing and, meeting people in the middle and then like securing that relationship or securing that job towards the end, which I know we'll go
Hmm.
into in a moment. But that whole process is really similar. So it's like, well, if I can look for a job and find internships and stuff, like, why can't I use that similar process to find, a date or a soulmate or whatever it is, a relationship? So for most people, it's actually the other way around, where it's so much easier dating. Like, people have college party, and all of a sudden you have like, your significant other.
Hmm.
Um, so that's why I relate, you know, so that's when I'm like, okay, well, most people have the transferable skills of dating. You definitely have those skills to apply that to when you're searching for a job. So
Right. Right.
that's my relationship. That's where this idea really got started. And now I've been
Hmm.
writing a blog for 2 years. And finally, I know Albert's like, when you're publishing your book, I finally published it. So I'm really excited about that.
Cool, cool. So for those of you who just joined, please leave your questions in the comments section below. We're going to have a really fun time today because we're essentially merging Albert's list and Albert's dating listings and referrals into one in talking about how your dating and your career life works together. And so I really want to I think dissect this book one by one because, I had to take a look at it. I edited it partially too. And I think that the thing that's most helpful for people when it comes to job hunting is seeing probably how dating works I guess what's the word phase by phase, right? Because everything that I see in dating and everything that I see in your job hunt seems to have a really, really, really coincidental parallel. Can you speak a little bit more to that before we jump into talking about your book and the phases that maybe people should could find that comparison with?
Sure. And Albert, this one's for you because I know you have similar story to me where you're good at, careers and where
Oh,
like, hey,
absolutely.
I'm dating. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
But I mean, I'm
it
not going to
really,
turn this into a whole webinar about how I'm still single and definitely looking. But go on.
that's another story. We got other relationships.
Sure,
But yeah,
sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
it really definitely does start with meeting people. Like for me, I use networking events. And why I do it for love, like going to network events, meeting new people, just like talking about what they do.
Uh-huh.
For some people, especially in college, meeting someone wherever
Yep.
you go, whether it's like a grocery store, the bar, a party, whatever it is, you're constantly meeting people, and these people are your connection. They will lead you to various places. So it could either be like a friend of a friend who introduces you to, their cute single friend, or it could be like this
Yeah.
one other person who you meet who, is also interested in, education, and they can steer you in the right path. I think a lot of that just like starts with your connections and where it can lead you to, whether it's, going or going on like a job board like Albert's List. Sometimes you don't
Mhm.
even know anyone at all, but it all really just starts there where you start finding out like all the different information and different components of finding a job or dating.
Cool, cool. So, I mean, yeah, I think that, a lot of people do have that good capability of going to, say, the bar or meeting up with someone in a class, and after class, they, go out to coffee, and then, you just see these things that blossom overnight in terms of relationships. Uh, I remember that in one situation in college, I sat next to someone who told me one day that they were going to an internship in a city that was a little further away from campus, and this guy had taken semi of an interest in them, but she didn't really know, what he wanted, but he didn't have anything to do over in that area. And eventually they got married, like I think 15 or 16 months later. And so there's definitely this parallel that I think lies in between. And yeah, I was at that wedding. It was a week after graduation too. It was the first, I think, wedding of my peers that I went to where I really had this, like, I think, revelation that, we're really not that young anymore. And now as I think I hit 30, I realized we really aren't that young anymore. And so I think the quicker that we learn these parallels and these skills that you have to offer in your book, the faster that we can really get to it. So let's dive into this book a little bit. And so, I distilled this book into looking at 5 different phases when it comes to your job hunt. And so the things I'd like to cover over the next couple of minutes as we really fall in love with what you have to say is personal branding, job hunting and resumes, cover resumes and cover letters, job websites, your interviews, and then finally getting the offer. And I think the really funny part of this is when we look at it, it's you have a lot of parallels, right? Your personal branding and your networking is like meeting the right people. Your job hunting and your job websites is using the right website to find your date, whether it's an app like Coffee Meets Bagel or Match.com or OkCupid or any of the hundreds of things out there that you can use right now. Resumes and cover letters, how to position yourself, how to sound when when you put yourself out there. Then you got interviews and common questions where you're going on the date, and then you're getting the offer, and then you're finally committing, and you're making yourself both LinkedIn official, Facebook official, and however other official that you like to do. So, I want to start by talking about personal branding and networking, and meeting the right people. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Reading the people are random. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
transitioning ourselves into the first section here where we're talking a little bit about uh, all of that. And so, yeah, I think this part is where we really talk about and discuss, like, when it comes to meeting the right people and networking. What are some ways that you talk about within your book that things like that, really change the way that people do any of their dating, any of their job hunting, things like that.
Sure. So, like, obviously, when you meet people, either at a networking event, a party, whatever it is, you're making a first impression. I mean, you're making
Sure.
some sort of impression. So, like, even now, for those who don't know me, like, a lot of you guys could know Albert, and you know who he is, what he's like. But for those who don't know me, you're getting that, like, first impression of me. And there could be, good things, bad things, hopefully all good things that you guys are, saying about me. But at the same time, this is like who I am. This is my brand, and this is what I'm representing. And over time with brands, it could either be personal, professional, whatever it is. It could be, the same for personal and professional, or it could be separate. Like, how I am at work is not necessarily how I am with my friends, or
Hmm.
definitely not how I am at a party. um, so
Sure.
you can have multiple brands to you, but when you're networking and you're meeting new people, that's what you're portraying. So, like, for me, for my brand, hopefully you think like, oh, she's easy to talk to, she's friendly, whatever it is. Like, once
Sure.
you really get to know me, what my friends really go to me for is like, okay, I need my resume reviewed. Like, I need help with interviews. I need help for finding a job. Like, Stella, you're the person I go to.
Hmm.
On the other hand, in my more personal life, I'm the person that everyone goes to for food. So, like, for Valentine's Day, everyone's like, hey, where do I take my girl? Like, what do I gotta do? Like, what are some
Right,
HR
right.
recommendations? Um, so there's like obviously two different sides of me that I can portray in different events. So
Sure.
once you get to know me better, you'll definitely see that. So that's definitely something that over time you will be working on. So like if you're here and you're a college student and you're like, I don't know what my brand is, like I'm just trying to get through school. Like that's totally okay. Like over
Mhm.
time you will establish that you will have something that you're known for. And keep in mind it could be good or bad. Like for me it's like it's food, but on the other hand, for some people if you're in college it could be like, wow, you're always that drunk girl, whatever, you're always the one that's like dancing on tables, that's not necessarily the best impression, but that's your brand. That's what you're known for.
So,
And
so
of
in
course
both,
that
I think your dating and in your professional setting, then is your personal brand kind of like your identity, where it's like, I want to be a product marketing manager in the tech industry, similar to, I enjoy long walks on the beach,
yeah,
coffee tastings, and watching,
yeah,
1980s movies, on Netflix, that kind
yeah,
of thing, right? And so, what does one do to get to that quicker realization? Maybe in one or both settings, because curating and creating that identity takes a lot of time. And I'm just curious to hear what you
yeah.
have to say about that.
I mean, like you said, it's a lot of time and it's overtime, but it's like when you think about your brand, it's like, let's say, I was trying to find you a date, Albert.
Hmm.
And the
Sure.
girl was like, what is he like? What is he like? That's essentially your brand. I mean, they're like,
Sure.
oh, he's really chill. Like, he likes long walks on the beach and he likes coffee tasting. Like, that's just the type of guy he is. So, like, that's your brand. Or if someone was to introduce me, or let's say you were introduced me to your friend who needed like a mock interview, you would be
Sure.
like, oh yeah, her style is like super chill and she basically has a conversation with you and, she really tries to dig in to find out like what you're passionate about and really coaches, so that's my brand. It's
Hmm.
really how someone else would explain who you are. And like, you don't get that right away. It's over
Right.
time. So like, you will know that when, you take multiple girls on, coffee dates. So, whatever it is. And that's how I know, like,
Sure.
oh yeah, he always takes her on coffee dates because that's what he likes, you know? So that's how you establish your brand because like, you can't have a brand yourself and you're like, oh, like I'm this, but at the same time, if you don't share your brand with other people, they're not
Hmm.
going to know. Like that's not going to identify who you are because someone's going to be like, oh, I didn't know he likes coffee, you know?
And so where do you go about sharing that brand? Because, we talk about Facebook and oversharing and talking about what it is that you want and need, because, wants and needs are really important pieces of both your dating and your career life. Things that I've
Yeah,
discovered here in the last, 6 to 8 months. And so how do you make those things known to the world, and how do you ensure that even in both settings that what it is that you want and what it is that maybe you even need are existing
yeah,
in the world too? Because there are entry level people out there who are like, oh yeah, I want a job that makes six figures, and they just graduated college yesterday. Or you have people who are in my dating group, or even maybe here in this group, and they're saying, hey, I want that bombshell blonde, or I want that guy who's taller than 6'5", who has, hair of a certain color, a body of a certain type, and those kinds of things. And we know how unrealistic those things are, but these are things that people legitimately want. And so, how do you address
yeah.
kind of that within your book?
So you mean I can't get a 6'5" guy? Just kidding.
I mean, you can, absolutely, you can. But I mean, it's like there's only a certain number of maybe 6'5" men in the world, depending on how you're able to date and
Definitely.
where you spend time. Similarly to the
Yeah.
number of six-figure jobs that new grads can get right out of school. Maybe if you work in petroleum engineering or mining or something as a high-level engineer, you can make six figures because there's in such high demand. But for the rest of us, right, we got to start at like $55,000 a year, and sometimes that's even lucky these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, you know, the one thing is like I'm sure a lot of you guys heard what SMART goals are. One thing that
Hmm.
really stands out
Smart
to me is
goals.
like realistic. Make sure that your goals or whatever you're trying to achieve is realistic. If you want to be known as the millionaire or billionaire by the time you graduate when you're 22, you better,
Hmm.
first of all, be working your ass towards it, or
Yeah,
make sure that it's more realistic that you will be a billionaire by the time you're 50 or whatever it is.
sure.
So when
Absolutely.
you look at it, if you say, okay, I want to do this after I graduate,
Hmm.
make sure you supplement yourself with the internships. Make sure that you supplement yourself with like your network. You start networking early. You work for like with every goal. You work towards your bigger goal. You have like the mini goals that work towards your bigger goal. So you have to make sure that it's realistic. Making $1 billion when you're just sitting on the couch doing nothing is not realistic. In terms of dating,
So I
like
can't just walk out of
just
my house and, get the most attractive women out there. I mean, I literally live right by Newport Beach. There's plenty of them over there, right? No, I'm kidding.
you're not much you can get in life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
I
whole
mean,
thing about like attraction and networking and how networking around the right circles gets you those kinds of results. That's
yeah.
absolutely true.
Well,
Feel free to
with at the
elaborate on
same
that.
time, like with dating, if you do want like a super attractive girl, whether
Hmm.
whatever that means in your mind, it's like, what's the purpose of having
Hmm.
a super attractive girl? Is it just so you can get an arm candy, or is she going to be super attractive and she's just going to, not provide much for you,
Well,
you
if you want
know?
my literal answer, I mean, I think it all boils down to survival. You want to
Okay.
essentially date and eventually make children with people who are extremely like befitting of offspring that will allow your generation to survive. And in that similar sense, we're in a day and age where having a job, not just any job, but a really good job is something that feeds the soul and adds to the soul because anybody can tell from 1,000 miles away if you don't like what you do for a living. And by the way, we're here with Stella. We're talking about finding the career that sticks with Stella Yuen. She just wrote a book, and we'll be sharing that shortly. You can also search for it on Amazon. There are 23 of you here on this webinar so far, and I invite you to leave any questions or comments. We're kind of talking about how dating and finding a job have a lot of different parallels. And I think people in this group have extensive experience in that kind of area. And we're kind of throwing it around, we're kind of having a little bit of fun. But it's also really serious because I know how many of you are looking for jobs. And so I think it's important that we have sort of this kind of comparison of a conversation, and we really gain in some of those insights. So Stella, I think the personal branding thing we really kind of buried the hatchet on that. I think that it's important to know where you find like people. It's important to really know what you want, know what your needs are, be able to communicate those needs, and also know that your wants and needs need to be realistic too. Those
Yep.
that six-figure job that chiseled, that man with a chiseled face, that girl with the bikini
Yeah.
body. You can get her today, but you got to work for it, and it's something that you got to like really really prep yourself for. And so that leads me actually to the next section of this webinar. So we're going to talk about job hunting and websites, right? And job hunting and websites, I think, is kind of the next phase for any job hunt because now that you kind of know what you want and you kind of have an idea of maybe who you want to date, where you want to work, that kind of thing, you can get into the mood of, okay, now where do I go and find that? And walk through what you kind of say in your book regarding this topic.
Yeah, so for job hunting and websites are definitely great platforms,
Hmm.
especially if you don't know anyone. Let's say, you've been out of college and your network isn't as big as you want it to be. There's obviously websites such as like LinkedIn or Monster or for on the dating end like OkCupid,
Sure.
Bumble, whatever. So like obviously there's a lot of stuff out there that's
Yeah.
that really helps that connection of what you're looking for. So they have filters. They make it really absolutely great. And I think goals is like have something in mind, like have something concrete that you're looking for. But on the other hand, be open to other possibilities that are like related to that as well. So like, how many 6'5" guys, like, is that
Sure.
really achievable, or, are you going to be shorter by like, 6 feet? Or, if you are looking for a product marketing job, but have
Sure.
that kind of experience yet, like, can you start out as a coordinator?
Mhm.
Or you're looking for something in tech, but you can't really find something just yet because they're like, oh, you need like 10 million years of experience. Can you find something related to like get you started? So it's
Mhm.
really about using these websites to your advantage, but also doing your research to see like what's really similar and what is it that you can compromise so that you find what you want, or that can find what can lead you to what you want.
And
But
what
at the
I'm really
same
discovering as I
time,
think
like,
about this is that, there's popular sites and there's like, unicorn websites too, right? A lot of people are on the OkCupids or the LinkedIns or the Tinders and the Career Builders or the Coffee Meets Bagels and the, I guess, Monster.coms. I guess I've been on these two different dichotomous websites way too much. But then there's also the hidden talent and the hidden things that you would never consider. For example, if you're a remote worker, you can there's websites for that. Similarly, if you're Jewish and you're looking to date other Jewish people, you can go to JDate. And so, talk about the value of diamonds in the rough.
yeah, I mean, like, you can literally find things, and sometimes with a group, like a platform so big like LinkedIn, you're
Hmm.
not able to exactly find like what you want. But if you are looking, like, let's do JDate. So if you are looking for, if you're Jewish and you're looking for someone Jewish, it's a really good place to just narrow it down, to see people that have common interests.
Sure.
Same with like, and like, if you're looking for marketing groups, you can specifically type in like product marketing groups, and it'll lead you to something smaller versus like a big job group where um, you know information flies everywhere. So
Hmm.
that kind of just like narrows it in, so that you get the network, you get the connection, and whether these connections work out to be like, oh, your future wife, or someone that can simply give you advice, like, I think
Yeah.
everyone's on there for the same reason.
And what about focus in regards to the job websites that you use? Do you have any thoughts on like if using any number of websites is too many? Like if I'm on 10 different, like I for a while had on my phone an entire section devoted to dating apps, much like I had an entire section devoted to job hunting apps. And so there were like, 10 apps in each of these because I have an iPhone and you can categorize apps. And so there were 10 apps in each of these like segments. And I don't have time to look at them all day, but it's nice to know that they're there. But it also maybe contributes to a lack of focus. And I was just curious to hear what your opinions on staying focused,
Well,
especially when it came to finding your job or your soulmate might
yeah.
be.
So let me ask you a question. So if you're
Sure.
like 10 dating apps,
Uh huh.
how focused were you? Like, how often did you use each one of them?
Okay, well, I guess since you have me on the spot here, I'm a coffee meets bagel person because I feel like I get the best quality matches off coffee meets bagel.
Okay,
OkCupid, on the other hand, is like sending my resume into an applicant tracking system. I don't get any replies. And then
cool.
Tinder is just like, I don't know. Tinder is like you're not really sure what you're ever gonna get, but I get something. And then I don't know. If I was really, really serious about, job hunting or maybe finding that date, I'd probably leverage something like, eHarmony or a Match.com where you have the greatest number of singles and you have maybe that high quality too, plus the benefit of, offline networking events. But, ultimately I stayed with apps that were really easy and intuitive to use and where I didn't have an infinite number of things to like pick from every day because after a while, and you and I both know this, that the consumerization of dating means that you can literally swipe through hundreds and hundreds of potential matches per day and decide that you like none of them because there are too many options available. And so that also, I think,
Yeah.
hurts people when it comes to job hunting too, because you have people who are entry level who think they qualify for nearly everything under the sun. And before you know it, they've sent out 800 applications and they still haven't gotten anything in return. And they're frustrated because they think no one likes them or that they think they're not qualified. So like, how do you, I guess the comparisons are just, they feel so real right now. And so how do you, I guess, work within that like framework?
Yeah, definitely. So the reason why I ask is like, because you said, okay, well, you have
Sure.
10 dating apps, like you can easily categorize it into your iPhone. But at the same
Hmm.
time, you mentioned, three, coffee meets bagel, which is intuitive for you. So you
Sure.
probably use it the most frequently, and that probably has more of an ROI for you. For Tinder, you're like, I just swipe, but not much happens. And then for OkCupid, okay, it's chill, but I feel like I'm just putting everything in a black hole.
And
So like
so, like,
for
to
you, you
interrupt you
started,
really quickly, you have a lot of apps now too that do all the mass liking for you, right? So, one of the members of my dating group mentioned this app to me where you can literally like 12 Tinder matches in one click instead of swiping 12 times. And we have job websites that do the same exact thing now, where you can apply for 12 jobs at once on ZipRecruiter, and your resume goes to 12 different people, and it's just kind of a spray and pray.
but at the same time, when you do that, you're gonna have to end up screening them anyway. So if you have a match,
Sure.
you're gonna end up having to look over that anyway. So I think it's
Totally.
like the key is it's just to find a couple that you feel comfortable with and be
Hmm.
really proactive on. Because let's say you use Tinder and you're not really on Tinder, like you can't expect to get any matches because you're not on there. Same with OkCupid,
I
like
didn't
you
log
can't
into
expect.
Tinder for 3 days and it let me know that I had 4 matches. So, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. That's
Well, then you better get on that. But like, you can't expect like if you're not doing any work into it, if you're not putting any work into it,
yeah,
you can't expect to get something in return. But like if you use Coffee Meets Bagel or like I'm on LinkedIn a lot, I
sure.
get like the best ROI because I get a lot of people like messaging me and stuff. Versus Facebook, no one messages me because I hardly use my Facebook. So
Hmm.
it just depends on what you feel comfortable with. But I would like narrow it down to like one or two that you're more focused on because the more active you are or the more proactive you are, the better results you will get. Versus if you just leave your profile and you're like, oh my gosh, why is no one messaging me? It's like I'm gone for 20 days.
That's kind of like my OkCupid profile because I haven't logged in like almost like a year
Yeah.
or more now. And so, it's not like they even send me anything about matches anymore. So, I mean, I totally get it. Like,
Yeah.
I think one of the most important parts about job hunting is the part where, you really think about how you accelerate your whole entire job search is by pounding the pavement and doing it day after day after day after day. And then eventually you kind of get this whole notion that, okay, you're finally starting to get noticed. Because like, I mean, I don't know what it is like in your own job hunting or rather candidate hunting methodology, but I realized that a job hunt takes like 2 or 3 weeks to really start materializing, and then all of a sudden everything just snowballs. And I don't know if dating is like that either. Maybe you can kind of like compare the two.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, and this book lays it out too. You have like a beginning, middle, and end. Like it
Sure.
always starts with it's when you're job searching. It's not just like, oh, okay, let me sign up for LinkedIn today and apply to all these jobs. There's a lot of prep work that goes into it, such as the networking and branding yourself. Like when
Hmm.
you're preparing for, meeting people, you gotta think like, okay, who am I? Like, what am I gonna tell people who I am? Like how am I going to make myself stand out from the
Yeah.
other 20 accountants that want the same job? So it all starts with that kind of prep work, and having your resume ready, your cover letter ready, already doing a lot of informational interviews before
Hmm.
you actually go into applying for the job,
Hmm.
which, you have to see, is this a good position for me? Do I qualify? What are the necessary skills do I need to like apply for this job? And then obviously going through the whole process of like applying for a job, interviewing. So just because you interview doesn't mean like, oh, you're going to click with the interviewer or click with the company. Um, you really shouldn't take any job that, gets thrown your way. You have to find that it's a good fit and that you want to make that commitment so that when both parties want to make a commitment, you sign the papers, you're good to go. But even after that, you still have to continue that relationship.
So is an
So
informational
dating,
interview like a hot first date or something?
an informational interview is like a pre-first date. So it's
Pre-first
basically like
date.
finding
Okay.
all the and it's like
Okay.
finding all the information you need to know. Like, okay, so when I first started dating, I'm like,
So
what
my
do I
Facebook
wear? Like,
stalking somebody that I might want to ask out or something, is that what it is? What this is in
I won't
similarity?
call it stalking, but I would find some commonality. It could be like asking a friend in common, like,
Yeah.
hey, does Stella like coffee? It could
Right.
be as simple as that. Maybe not full on stalking, but
Right.
on the other hand, like whatever they post on Facebook and LinkedIn is like free game. Like they posted
Okay.
their own purpose.
Okay.
So
Okay.
going back to like dating, it's the same thing. Like you,
Sure.
you know, like unless you're really just gonna jump into your first date, like you're not gonna know what to expect. If you're a teenager, what the hell do I do on a first date? You ask your friends like, hey, how did your date go? Like, what did you guys talk about? Like, what did you eat? Did he pick you up? Did you open the door? That's like your informational interview. You're like asking your friend or whoever
Mhm.
a dating questions like, do I pay on the date? Like, how much should I spend? You kind of have to do that like pre-work so that you can on a date, then you can like, start impressing the other person.
So it sounds like a lot of people then in their job hunting go on a lot of blind dates where they're not sure what they're getting into, and they end up either coming out disappointed or marginally surprised because maybe the person that shows up
Yes.
on this date ends up being the love of their life. And so, I mean, do you subscribe to like blind date job hunting, or is that something that you absolutely tell everyone that you work with no?
No, I mean, like, yeah, like you said, it can either turn out really horrible or it can turn out great. Like with my current position, I don't tell anyone, but I didn't really know what kind of company it was.
You're gonna have a
And
couple
I was
thousand
pleasant.
people watching this video. They might tell your boss. Who knows? But go on.
No one, this is why I don't share the company. But like,
Yeah.
but when I interviewed, it's okay because I didn't come in with any. I was pleasantly surprised and ended up falling in love with it. And
Hmm.
to date, I still really like the company, which is fantastic. But at the same time, like going into it, I like did a little bit of research after I got the interview, but I didn't have any expectations coming in. So it could be either or. Like, there's been some times where I go to an event and it's funny because I'll literally tell my friends like, my gosh, I love being single. It's so much fun, blah blah
Hmm.
blah, single and blah 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 blah. And then I, go out and then come back and I'm like, yes, I met this guy and I didn't expect to. So it's like sometimes things just come unexpectedly. Um, and you should really take it and run. Like if opportunity presents itself, like definitely
Totally.
at least take a look at it,
I think opportunities come
ask
out of
questions.
nowhere all the time, and so you really
Oh
just
yeah,
have to grab it by the horns and run with it because, it's just how it goes. Yeah.
definitely.
Cool. So we don't have any questions right now, but I wanted to thank everyone again who's on this call for joining. We're talking about finding the career that sticks with Stella Yuen. We're kind of going through her book, and her book is called Finding Your Peanut Butter, and it really covers a lot of the cross applicable skill sets that you need between being a really good dater and being a really good job hunter. And so you can get this book on Amazon. We'll have the link up by the end of the webinar here. And if you have anything fun to say, anything interesting to say, there are 15 of you on this right now. Feel free to do so, and we'll look forward to reading the comments as they come in. So the third section I want to talk to, I think now that we've covered the job hunting and job websites part, is resumes and cover letters, rather resumes and cover letters. So resumes and cover letters, I think, are the most important part of the job hunt because they tell people who you are, they get your foot in the door, and they help people introduce themselves to you. And I guess tell me a little bit more about how that works within your book and what the dating equivalent of a resume or cover letter might be.
Yeah, so this is where your branding comes in. So this is why we talk so much about branding. It's really like showcasing who you are. So a resume, it's like showcasing your accomplishments.
Hmm.
So like I always use this example. So like for example, if you and your friend both sold like are applying for the same exact sales job, and you had the same internship before, and you both sold candy bars. Like who's gonna stand out? Someone on their resume that said like sold candy bars, or someone on their resume that says like, sold 50 candy bars within 2 minutes using using social media platforms such as Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram. You know, the
Hmm.
first one tells me like, okay, cool, they know how to sell candy bars. So like, how much they sell one and just put it on their resume. And then the second one is like, cool, they sold like a bunch of candy bars in a really quick time, and they know how to use marketing in social media platforms. So that
Hmm.
one line told me like all of that,
Right.
which showcases who you are. Like for me, I barely know how to use social media or technical difficulties, but I'm like
Right. Yeah.
stronger in other things.
Hmm.
So it's the same. So you know, using that on your resume is really showing your brand and showcasing who you are. The same with a dating website, which is your resume. When you fill out like the about me section, what your likes are, what are 5 things you can't live without. Don't really
Hmm.
know what they ask you anymore, but when you fill out that section, it's like what's going to make you stand out other hundreds of people who are also looking for a date. What's that one thing about you that people are going to be intrigued about? Is what who you are in your resume or in your dating profile.
So
And
with
a
so many
cover letter should.
resumes out there and so many dating profiles out there, because, as kind of an average looking dude, it's hard to, I think, put yourself on a dating website and then message 30 women in a row or 30 men in a row and get absolutely zero response. And so I guess, how do you talk about how to have a resume that stands out within your book? Because, you know, 6 seconds. How do you capture somebody's heart? How do you capture someone's eye in just 6 seconds? Right? You had me at hello. You had me at managed $50 million of something. Something like that.
Yeah, it's really those keywords. Like
Yeah.
you're like each person is unique. Not everyone's going to like the same thing. So like those 30 people who pass, it's like okay, well they just can't relate. But that
Mhm.
one person who's gonna message you and be like, oh, you like cats too, or like, oh, you love peanut butter, like whatever it is, like they will find that one common interest, and like that's how you guys will connect.
Mhm.
For those other people, like
Okay. I think you might have dropped off really quick. What did you say over there?
I don't know what it was I saying.
Oh, you were just saying for other people, how do you, I guess, communicate your experience and everything like that?
Oh, how to communicate. Well, I mean, a resume is something that can get you through the door, like just like how a dating profile can get you through the door. On the other hand, that's where your work will help. Like it really goes hand in hand. You can't, when you're job searching, you can't just sit there and submit resumes like, day after day and submit 50 here, 50 there, 50 there. You
Hmm.
really have to try different modes, like meeting new people
Sure.
in person. As to be the
Hmm.
same as dating because like you're gonna like, let's say coffee meets bagel.
Yeah.
You know, they show you who you're, and if you're like, if you connected with some of them and they're not responding, hit up your friend and be like, yo, why isn't this girl responding to me? Like, hey, I saw so and so. Like, tell me what she's like. Like, what is it that I can connect with her on? So you really need to get that extra step. It's not like, oh, you submit everything and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
cool. They suck because they don't find my resume great. You know, it's like sometimes you have to have that extra step of like following up
Yeah.
or doing whatever you need to do to stand out.
And I think Marissa Marsala, who's actually a recruiter in our group, said it best that authenticity is a common denominator. Can you talk about authenticity a little bit, both in like your resume and maybe even your personal branding going back a little bit, and especially in dating?
Yeah, don't be fake.
Yeah, don't be
there's
fake.
there's a lot of
I
times.
think it always asks for more elaboration because authenticity is this
Well,
like
yeah.
woo-woo term that's very new agey sometimes, and I was like, oh yeah, it's important to be authentic. But I mean, like, what does it really mean to be like authentic? Especially when you're like a new grad and
I'll
you
give
may
you an
not have the
example.
skills and you really want the job.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, first of all, don't put anything on your resume you can't talk about.
Hmm.
Anything you put on your resume is free game. I can ask you about what I can give you an Excel test. And if you say you're proficient. But like at the same time, if you're asking questions, like be genuine. Don't try to sound smart
Hmm.
because you want to impress someone. Like, oh, I read off your website, blah 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 blah. My professionals don't even read the website. Second, what you're really curious about, or as a college student or as someone entering the field, like, do you want to know what I do on a day-to-day basis? What I like
Hmm.
about my job and what is challenging about my job?
Hmm.
These are some insider information that you can't get to someone. Ask me some genuine questions that you actually want to know about and like relate it back to yourself. Like ask me, tell me why you're asking. So like as a sophomore, like I really haven't taken, a marketing class yet. So, I'm just curious, like how did you get into the field? Like any suggestions you have for me while I'm still, 19, 20, 21.
And I
Ask
think you
something
touch on
genuine
not
and
only
like,
authenticity there, but you also touch on curiosity. I mean, I think at least
yeah,
for men in the dating world, it's always talked about how the less you talk and the more you let her talk and the more curious you are, the more interested she'll be in it. The more interested she'll be in you because you're a little bit mysterious and she feels safe knowing that she can express herself around you. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
Well, the
we
key for,
can kick that around for a little bit if you want.
I mean, the key is to really listen. And I mean, really what an interview is to be relatable. If it looks like you're boring me or whatever it is,
Hmm.
like stop something else.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is find a common ground. That's where sometimes LinkedIn can really help you. Like if you're obviously going to strike up a conversation about food. If you see someone really like snowboarding and you just went this past, you can like talk about that. Start so you can really just relate and have that conversation because like at the end of the day, whoever you're interviewing with, they're
Hmm.
just real people. Like they have the same interests and same commonalities as you do. So it's like find that common ground. And if not, then like, okay, this isn't the place for me, or this isn't the girl or guy for me.
Right. Yeah. And Marissa says, let your guard down and just be yourself because they deserve to understand and evaluate what they're getting. And so I'm actually curious about, so Eric asks a really good follow-up question and he's like, and we all know that, new grads and people who don't have that much job experience have it harder. I think people who don't have that much dating experience have it harder too, because it's like, okay, do I pay for the first X number of dates? When do I go for the kiss? Do I hold her
Yeah.
hand? Do I open the door for her? Do I come up with the ideas? Do I text her good night? Who says I love you first? Right? All the whole, the whole like 9 yards
That's
of like
another conversation.
that's a separate conversation. Yeah, it's a separate conversation for Albert's dating listings and referrals. But for the people in the world, in the room, in the group who may not have the adequate experience that maybe employers are looking for, how do you position yourself that way, and how do you put that on the resume,
Yeah,
or your dating profile? Because it just seems like
definitely.
it's so quick to strike out these days, and people don't get the time of day like they used to, and I think they deserve it, because everybody is unique and interesting and has something to offer, provided that you're willing to sit down and spend the time and actually listen to what they have to offer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, everyone starts out somewhere. I didn't
Sure.
grow up to be a recruiter. I didn't grow up to be a career
Hmm.
counselor, you know?
Hmm.
So everyone starts out somewhere. You just gotta, if you can't get, if someone's not going to give you the experience, create it for you, for yourself. You
Sure.
know, who says like 15-year-olds can't start their own business? So, make sure you create it for yourself. But I think the one thing about society these days is like we are a network. Like you get jobs because of your networks. That's how I got my job. That's how I know you. It's not like we just met and whatever. It's like we create that relationship. So now we're like talking to each other. But it's like it's really about creating that relationship so you can vouch for whoever. So like a lot of times when I work with students who are younger and have no experience, we base a lot of their interview based on potential. Like we're like, okay, you seem like you're gonna be good. Like I'm hoping you're good, so I'm gonna give you a chance. So you have to find those people that will give you a chance and can
Sure.
stand behind you and vouch for you, um, and be like, okay, they don't have much experience, but they will be good. I promise you. Mentor. That's really, really important is finding a mentor, finding those people that can support you. I think that's
Hmm.
definitely the first start. And in college, it's the easiest. You will have like your whole bank of people, your professors, your career counselors, your RAs, your peers, whoever like that.
Hmm.
Career fairs, this is the time to start like putting everyone into your address book and making
Hmm.
those like genuine real connections because
Sure.
when you meet something and vice versa or whatever, when they know you, they will vouch for you. If they don't know you, we're just gonna be like, okay, well, who are you? You know? Same with your
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
same
Very
with
true. Very
dating.
true.
You're not gonna
Very true.
refer someone who you don't know.
Yeah. No, that's very true. Okay, cool. So I think we've covered resumes and cover letters here, and I think maybe the next part that we want to move is really into the meat of this, which I guess we're 50 minutes in, but we still got to talk about it, and that's interviewing. And so this is
Oh
step
yeah.
number 4, and I know you cover interviewing, and common questions, um, in the book, and we also know that like going on dates is pretty much, I guess, a glorified romantic job interview. So talk a little bit about what you cover in the book in this area, and talk about those common questions and how you can cross apply those skills.
Definitely. So it's literally your resume. I think we get to talk about it in person. So the way to do that is like paint a picture. Like my biggest tip is literally have a conversation and tell a story. Like you want the other person, whether it's an interview or a date, to like get to know who you are. You want it to be interactive. You want to relate to the other person and vice versa. So you want to tell a story, whether it's like dumb, funny, serious, like whatever it is. Like you don't talk with one liners. You tell stories. It's like, when you're dating, you're like, let's say Albert and I are talking about dating, which we do. It's like, man, guess what happened today? Like this girl I went on is, or like, guess what happened at work? Like my boss, it's, I mean, you don't have to exaggerate it like that. Please don't. But it starts like that where you're literally telling a story so that people can relate to it. And it paints a picture in their head that's like, okay, so I can see this happening. Okay, then I can see this happening. And then you're like, you want them to get to a point where you're like, okay, so like, what happened? What happened? you know? So in my book, I talk a lot about the STAR method.
Hmm.
Um, so I
Yes.
really suggest you read up on it. Situation, task, action, result. That's really the way to tell a story. That will keep you short, sweet, and concise, but also engaging as well. So I would say for an interview, like it's gonna fly by. Like actually, 30 minutes can either be really long or it could be
Hmm.
really short, depending on how you click. But
Sure.
use it wisely. Don't just like brag about yourself without backing it up. Share the stories because that's what we want to hear. We want to be entertained. We want to be engaged.
So do you
End of
use the
date.
STAR method when you're on a date to talk about, tell me about a time when you absolutely swept your, ex's feet off or something like that, and you can literally ask that similar conversation? I mean, is this how it all works?
So yeah. So I go on a date. One of the questions I usually ask to break the ice, like, tell me a tell me an embarrassing story. I want to hear it from the beginning to the end. I want to hear the situation. I want to hear what happened afterwards. I want to hear things in between. Like, I want you to paint a picture and like either laugh or feel sad, or you can definitely apply the STAR method to NBC, especially after the tell a story anyway.
Cool, cool. You still there? Okay, you are still there. This thing kind of is a little wonky sometimes. So, so what are some other so how about like during the interview process if people are asking you if you have any questions? I know we just talked about questions that you might be asked in the STAR method and strategies to answer them. But what about how you might answer questions or ask questions for other people to get to know you better? Because there's this whole like I guess maybe you could call it a song and dance or a game or whichever. And you really have a limited amount of time to showcase either to someone that you're worth a longer term look as far as a person who's being dating or as far as a person who's willing to look for a job. So how do you kind of assess both of those areas?
I mean, when dating, it's obviously
Sure.
maybe your first time meeting or maybe the first couple of times you're meeting. Job interview, it's really based on impression. Is it that you click with the people? In a day, is it like, okay, does this are we having such a good time? Bring you back, or like, are you such a dud that I can't wait for the date to be over? Like when you're dating, definitely what you look for. Like after a certain amount of dates, you start thinking like, okay, do you want to take this girl out even more? Am I like having more fun with her, or like, man, this is not going anywhere, and I should just where it ends. You know, it's really can this person can I see this person working for me in the firm, and we're going to continue to have great conversation, or like maybe
Okay. Yeah, I know. And Marissa actually says another really great thing within the section that says that building rapport is also really important during the interview process as well because
sure.
you know and even on a date because you want to build sort of that like chemistry. And I'm actually curious to know like what are your thoughts on chemistry because I'm still not sure, and I'm not ever sure that I'll be sure about what chemistry is, both in a job hunt and an interview, as well as within the
Yeah,
realm of a date. So, talk about that. I don't know if you talk about that in your book, but feel free to expand on it.
I don't, but that's an interesting topic. Um, and I know we like talked about this a little bit, but it's like, when there's something off and you're just like, there's just something, and I don't know quite what it is, but it's a big reason why you're hesitant. There's no chemistry. But when there's chemistry, you like hit it off, like whether it's a job interview or on a date, you like hit it off, and you're just like, man, when's the next time I can see you? Like, this is great. You're like excited. You're excited to come to work to, hang out with your coworkers, or you're excited for that next date. I think with chemistry, it goes both ways, and you both have that same enthusiasm and same passion for each other, that you want to share.
Are you there? Are we frozen again? I guess we're frozen again. Hold on. Okay, we'll wait for her to come back. I think in the meantime, we can talk a little bit about. So, obviously, we're covering here the interview process and all the interview questions. And I actually had a phone call with a member of this group yesterday where we talked a little bit about like what it means to be an effective job interviewer. And so, as kind of what we've discussed during the course of this segment, that your ability to answer interview questions, and I guess in some sense dating questions, through being able to build rapport, build interest, is really important for your ability to gain that kind of insight and gain uh, that kind of further interest that people are going to give you based on your experience, based on your charisma, based on your ability to effectively articulate what it is that you're capable of doing and capable of knowing. And so I would say that, whether you're going on that interview or whether you're going on the whether you're going in that interview or whether you're going on anything beyond that, your ability to be able to capably showcase and communicate is really important. So Stella, I know you stepped out for a real quick moment there. I was just kind of refreshing them on what we're talking about within the interview realm while we waited for you to come back. And so I wanted to actually go into the last part too, because we're actually coming up on exactly an hour here, and I've had a lot of fun kicking this around because you kind of know how crazy and weird my dating life is, and how weirdly structured and successful my career life is. So
Oh,
having your story kind of put out there is really interesting to me because I'm good at one and I'm improving in the other, and I hope that one day at some point down the line in my life I'm gonna have these two skills meet up at one nice center point, and it's all gonna really come down to it, and it's gonna be like, okay, I have the job I want, I have the significant other that I want, and so here we go. And so hopefully when I get to that point in my life, and we've had actually some really good comments here while we were waiting too. Eric said that building a connection between who you are and sort of how that translates into value is important in both dating and interviewing. And Simon Monbrogli, who's also a recruiter, went and actually gave probably the best comment of this entire thread, where he talks about literally calling up the hiring manager because they probably want to hear from you rather than anything else. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that all of that is really important, and I think the final section is really, you've interviewed well, and a lot of people interview well, and I think we should talk. And the way that I really want to word this is that you get the offer and you get the commitment, and so uh, and so in this segment, I want to talk about probably the most fun part of probably job hunting and dating, where now that you've done all the hard work, you can make it official. But before you make it official, you still have to do your due diligence. Dive into that a little bit more with me.
great when someone's like, "Oh, you must," you know, it's time to make that commitment. So really, it's like, okay, well, do I want to, share? I mean, this sounds really true, like share my life with this person, or like, join this company, whatever it is. So it's like, really, it's time for you to think about, like, okay, well, let me assess. Like someone mentioned value. Does our values match? Can I see myself with this person or company long term? Am I going to be happy overall? Is this person going to support me? There's lots of things you think about, especially, and this is where set your goals, and you know, there might be a checklist of what you want. Like, are they meeting that checklist?
Hmm.
If there's a red flag, there's times where, even though you get an offer and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for a job forever and I finally got an offer, but there's something off, or, if they're not offering you benefits when you really need it, or, you're doing, there's times where you have to assess it and, be real with yourself and be like, yeah, this is like just a job for me. Like, I don't really care. Like, this is just a boyfriend, so I can have a boyfriend just so, they can buy me stuff.
I mean,
you
is
know?
there anything wrong though with having a job for the sake of having a job? I know we know that in relationship context that having someone to just have someone at the end really breaks everyone's hearts. But what if you just can't have a job to have a job because you need the money to pay rent and your boyfriend or girlfriend may not pay the rent, but having a job for the sake of having a job certainly does.
Sure. I mean, sometimes you can have a job just to have that experience, um, because you're an intern or whatever, or you really need the money. Like, that's fine, but make the most out of it. It might not be your dream job. It might be the stepping stone. It could be a job just because you need money, but at the same time,
Mhm.
like, make the most out of it so that you are happy coming to work every day. What is some little thing that, you can get excited about, whether it's, the cowork you do, like, what is it that you can relate to that gets you coming to work every day instead of like, oh, it's just a job. Like, I need to do this to get money, because at the
Mhm.
end of the day, if you're really going to be that unhappy, you're going to quit anyways. And you're going to have to do the whole search over again.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely and absolutely. And so and so I know that like I think even in both dating and in your job search and finding that job, one thing that I realized is that nothing seems to be permanent anymore. And so how do you really stamp permanence into both jobs and maybe, your love life to that effect? Because
Yeah.
I find it eerily similar how, at least in California anyway, it's at will employment. And in dating, it's kind of like at will dating too, because if somebody drops you right there, you can't exactly say, no, I'm not going to end this because I say so. It's something deeper than that. So, like, how does that also work too with getting the offer? And I know you don't
Yeah.
mention breaking up and, arguing and all of that stuff in your book because we're
Yeah.
not quite there yet, but talk about that a little bit too, because I think those are all parts of the job hunt and the job search as well, and
Yeah.
having the job.
Yeah. Like, when you make a commitment, it's like you make a commitment for life. But at the
Sure.
same time, when you're young, I don't know. Like, if it's your first job, you're like, I don't know if I want to stay here for 40 years. Like, if it's your first marriage,
Uh huh.
like I don't know. I think this would be actually a good question to ask your group. But like, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, all like, we're the same age. Our friends are getting married these days, and you're just like, how'd you know you want to make that commitment for the rest of your life? Like, I'm still trying to figure that out. So it's the same with job searching. I have a job that I really like right now, but who knows how long I'll be doing this
Hmm.
for, or who knows, I can then move up for the rest of my life because I really like the company. But who knows where I'll be when I'm like 50 years old, and maybe something else will steer me in a different path.
Right.
So, like, I think there's a lot of unknown, and I think with this, that's why you can have goals. But I mean, I'm always scared when people are like, in 50 years I want to do this, because, like, honestly, a lot of things can change and you have to adapt to it. So, ooh, sorry, fly. So so I think that it's just like, you just have to be flexible and see where it takes you. And there's going to be, a lot of highs and lows, especially with your dream job, or you marry that dream guy or dream girl, but at the same time, there's still going to be, problems that you have to solve together.
Hmm.
And, not everything's going to be perfect. So you kind of just have to, like, take it where it goes. So I
Yeah,
don't have that
absolutely.
answer, but, I'm just going with the flow.
Cool. So we've been now going for about an hour 10 on this. I think we've covered a lot. And so, for those of you who are on this, actually, I got one more question for you here. So Janelle asks, how do you make a good impression once you land a dream job at a big company? So if you end up going to a Google or end up going to a Facebook, or if you end up, dating the
Yeah.
hottest woman in your town or end up dating the most handsome guy in your street, how do you make that good impression and continue to make that good impression as you go through? I mean, you know that arguing and, conflict is going to be a natural part of the whole entire experience, but how do you continue to make that good impression?
Yeah. I mean, I would say honestly, just be true to yourself. First, like we keep saying, don't be fake, don't be anyone you're not. But, it's really, really about getting to know people and making those, like good impressions and creating those relationships. So like, when I first started my job a while ago, I made a point, I sent out calendar invites to key people in our firm to have lunch dates with them.
Mm,
And over time you just get to know them. You continue that relationship department or not. And that's the thing. Don't just keep to your department. Get to people because they are different resources. So, once you establish that relationship and people trust you, that's really the way to make that good impression. Versus like, yeah, she's doing a good job, but she doesn't talk to anyone. Like who's gonna really know who you are if you're just like sitting there doing a good job and you do good work, but no one knows you. The key is like to have people know you so they can vouch for you, and that's really going to be where you make the best impression.
cool, cool. So we're going to spend the last little bit here because I let everyone do this when they come on a webinar with me. So just to let everyone know, Stella has a book out, and you can get it on Amazon today. We'll put the link here in a really quick bit. And for people who want to get in touch with you or find you or talk to you or get coaching from you, be it dating or career coaching, where can they get you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, www.findyourpeanutbutter.com, or you
Hmm.
can email me, stella@findyourpeanutbutter.com, or I'm also very, very active on LinkedIn. Search up Stella Yuen. I'm usually the first one you can find. So, hit me up that way as well. I usually respond to everyone.
Great, great. And talk about the book again. And I mean, I know that the book has been live for a couple of weeks now. And is there anything else that maybe we didn't cover in today's interview that readers of your book or people who may be interested in buying your book should know about?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of like interview, resume, career coaching books and job search books out there. I think what makes mine unique is really relating to you guys, the audience and your transferable skills, because I want to show you like it's not as hard as you think it is.
Hmm.
It's really all about that patience. But at the same time, like I want to show you, you can do it. And this book will literally walk you through step by step on how to achieve that with also a checklist. So
Hmm.
you to know that you're headed in the right direction. And it's short. It's a really simple read. I incorporate my own stories so you get to see like, okay, she's not just making it up. I'm like talking about my own life that
Hmm.
hopefully you guys can relate to. So I think, for younger folks like college students or people who are just graduated or transitioning jobs, I think this could be very, very relatable versus reading like a lengthy career book and you're just like, oh my gosh, where do I even start?
Yeah, and there's one thing I actually realized I forgot to ask you midway through this because, people may look at your website and they may think, find your peanut butter. What does peanut butter have to do with job hunting and dating? Can you actually cover that before we conclude here?
Yeah, so my thing is like, you want to find the one that sticks. So
Hmm.
you're the jelly, you want to find your peanut butter. Peanut butter is the one that sticks. Come on, you want to find that career or soulmate that sticks to you. So that's my
Sure.
whole thing.
Sure, great. So, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off and let everyone here back into the world to go find jobs and find that career that sticks?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice, and I've done, both. I've done finding a soulmate, finding a career, and really, like, I know it's going to be frustrating, but please just be patient. Like, be patient. Don't expect to, get the book, do all the steps, and hear back within 2 weeks.
Hmm.
This is a whole process. You could
Hmm.
get rejected in between. You could have some happy news. You could get someone and then it couldn't work out and you have to start over. Like, please just be patient, because this really is a process. And just know that, it's not going to take you 2 weeks. Sometimes it could take you 6 months. Sometimes it could take you a year. It just depends on the person, but just be persistent about it too. Be proactive. Don't just sit there and expect like a job to just like a girl to just fall in your lap and be like, "Hey, here I am." You're so
And I think that is
definitely
really
reach out
important.
if
I
you.
think that even for the people who have a lot of experience in job hunting, being able to find a job in 1 to 2 weeks is really, really, really rare unless the timing really like syncs up. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's some really good advice. And so, I think we'll end that here. And so, once again, the link to the book is both on screen and within the comments section. And you know how to reach out to Stella. You know how to hang out here on Albert's List, find your next job. I'll be back on here doing another live video on Friday when the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics drops its February jobs report, which is Donald Trump's first. And we'll be here again next week for another webinar. That one is to be determined, but we're getting it on the calendar. So for all of these out there, go and find the career that sticks or the soulmate that sticks, and we'll see you here on Albert's List or Albert's Dating Listings and Referrals to talk about it all. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.